over 50 years supporting childcare providers around the state. We have a number of programs. We are a food program sponsor for family childcare providers in all 72 counties, which means we can reimburse family childcare providers who are serving healthy food for their kids, because we know when kids eat better, they do better. We are the licensee for TEACH, which is a scholarship program. It originated in North Carolina. There's about 30 TEACH states across the country. We are one of them. That means that we can help support family childcare providers, childcare teachers, and directors to receive higher ed credit, so college-based credit, at little to no cost to them. This has been incredibly successful. You'll see some stats later. We have a very highly educated workforce relatively in our early care and education field, and TEACH is definitely part of that. We have Raising Wisconsin. That is our advocacy arm. We'll be talking a little bit more about that later, of how you all could potentially get involved. It is a critical time to be involved, raising your voice, and letting every legislator that is connected to you in some way, shape, or form know that childcare as an employer is an issue. I'll just step ahead just a little bit with our advocacy work. We've been doing this for a long time for advocacy. Raising Wisconsin is not WICA alone, but over 50 organizations that have come together to really push an investment for early care and education. When we started this work, the legislators said, we're not hearing from anybody. We're like, we can help with that. So our providers and our childcare programs, let them know. Well, we're not hearing from employers. All right, great. So we got employers in line and sharing each story. Well, we're not hearing from parents. So as you can see, legislators need to be hearing from every single element of folks that are connected to childcare one way or another, to know that there is no way they're going to make a decision without including childcare. It is imperative. Everybody in the community is affected. Even if you don't have children, you are affected because of the good that childcare does. And so we'll be stepping into a little bit more of that, but just know that it is very important, especially now given some of the political timing with the budget. And then finally, WESN, the Wisconsin Early Education Shared Services Network. Teach and Reward and the food program have been around for over 20 years. Raising Wisconsin is fairly new, but WESN is sort of the baby of WICA. We kicked off in January of 19. We started with 2 childcare providers, 2, one family provider and one group program in Vernon County. We are now a statewide program serving over 2,000 childcare programs. Fond du Lac County is able to access Tier 1 and Tier 2 of services. Our services are available in English and Spanish. That's very important to us. So we have a digital platform that has over 2,600 resources for providers, everything from how to do strategic planning with your board, to lesson planning, to menu planning, to I need to create a budget for the very first time. I'm a brand new provider. I need a handbook. I don't know where to start. All of those things are there. The letter that you need to post when you have pink eye going through your program. It is incredibly comprehensive. Within that is a digital hiring platform that allows childcare programs to post jobs for free, and it pushes out to 13 major employment sites. So instead of paying $50 to $75 a pop for a job posting, members of WESN can join and post those jobs at no cost to them. We know one childcare program that was able to hire 10 staff over time using that platform. When WESN first started, that was the platform we used to hire our folks as well. There's also a discounted purchasing platform. So things like finger paint, construction paper, scissors, glue, all of those sorts of things, but also janitorial services, paper goods. We had one family childcare provider who saved over $1,000 a year through an insurance policy shift through the platform. So we know it's saving folks money. We know it's saving them time. And these are vendors that they would be choosing to buy from anyways. Discount School Supply, Lakeshore, those are sort of the big names in early care and education, and they are on this platform. With that, we do training. And actually Tier 1 is, they get more than quarterly training now. They get actually every month we have training. plus an additional quarterly training. So I think we're up to over 20 hours of training that are at no cost to providers. Those are available again in English and Spanish. They typically deal with business practices, but we also have some trainings every year for the direct care providers who are working with children. We just did one on guiding behavior, and it was hugely successful. So that is a benefit that they get, which means they don't have to pay for those costs out of pocket to go anywhere else. They can get it for free with us. We have our WESN newsletters. One is all about farm to ECE, and you'll see that that comes back at a later tier of service. The other one is called the WESN Wrap Up, and what we do is comb all of what's going on out there in the world and condense it into a short newsletter so folks don't have to check 27 different places or read through 47 different emails to get the information they need. So if DCF is changing something, we let them know. If there's a new form out that they need for childcare accounts, we let them know. If there is a Tuesday's talk with DCF that is relevant around funding, like the current program C, which is about getting money into childcare programs for inclusion, we let them know. So what we really try to do is be an information broker so that they can really save time by going to this one place and getting those details. We also have a waitlist concierge. I'm going to say, I'm just reading this. Sam, I will get to your question as we go through this. Our waitlist concierge, we have been hearing from childcare programs, they have dozens to hundreds of kids on their waitlist. Parents are calling all the time, and it has become unmanageable. So we were able to provide this technology for them to be able to manage their waitlist so that when there is an opening, there can be an immediate match for the age of child in which classroom with the schedule that's preferred to fill that opening right away. And then finally, our employee assistance program, we actually renamed it the Educator Assistance Program. We just launched that in January, and that is, like many of you probably at the county or others businesses may have an EAP of your own that helps you with potential personal finances, legal consultation, concierge services, mental health supports. Those are all available to our workforce within WESN. So every single person who's an employee in that 2,000 childcare program amount that I just shared with you, them, their households, and their children up to 26, regardless of where they live, are all covered. So potentially that benefit can be reaching over 20,000 people in the state. We're very excited about that, and it is sort of our largest lift so far to supply support for childcare. Tier 2 offers everything in Tier 1, plus you get a tiered specialist, which is sort of like a hotline coach. If you have a question, if you want a policy review, if you have a parent that hasn't paid and you don't know what to do, you can call your WESN tiered specialist and they will talk you through that. We set them up with technology if they're not already using it. And this technology, we work closely with the state to ensure that it meets all licensing, subsidy, and program integrity needs. With that software, basically a parent can enroll online and their enrollment paperwork is completely in compliance from day one. They cannot submit their enrollment paperwork missing anything. If you're using paper forms, it's really easy to miss a signature somewhere or a little tick box that says, yes, they can go on field trips or no, they can't. We've built it such that it supports licensing compliance completely. They also get telemedicine and teletherapy benefits and that additional professional development I was talking about. And then finally, Tier 3. So Tier 1 and Tier 2 are available in your county right now. We have childcare programs we're serving in Fond du Lac. We have room for more. So if you are working with childcare programs, know any childcare providers, folks who are thinking about coming into childcare, please let them know about WESN. I will send you all information after the presentation so you know where to find it, but this is at no cost to providers. And everyone goes, what? That can't be free. What's the catch? And we are currently funded to be able to provide this service at no cost. I was at a meeting last week in Appleton, and there was a whole table of childcare directors that didn't believe it was free. And a colleague brought me over and I said, yes, indeed, there is no cost. We want you to be successful. And we've determined that these tools are the ones that we know providers have most needed. So we were able to build it with that in mind. Tier 3 is our hyperlocal supports. These are not yet available in Fond du Lac County. They get a dedicated coach with about a 1 to 20 caseload. If they are working with group programs, they have been a center director themselves. If they are supporting family childcare providers, they have been a family provider. All of our staff have deep lived experience doing the work of childcare. We have a shared back office, so we have a financial specialist and his team who can basically run the financials for a childcare program if they deserve. So if they want to outsource that so that they can focus their time and money on investing back into their program, they can do that. We have food systems coordinators that connect with local producers and farmers to bring nutrient-dense food to those childcare providers and their families. And then we also have Relief Squad, and that is a lead teacher qualified substitute pool that we train, we do the background checks, we do the fingerprinting, we keep them on salary, and then they work within a 20 program cohort to take appointments and that sort of thing. Like if a provider has to go to the doctor, if a staff person in the infant room has a short-term like vacation for 3 days, whatever it is, we can step in and be qualified to support that teacher and that childcare program. So this is all of WESOM. This is the program that I personally direct with my co-director, Paula Drew. My background is in family childcare. Her background is in center-based care. All of our staff have family childcare or center-based care experience. And so we have a team of about 50 folks working on this project right now, and they are some of the best overachievers you will ever find in early care and education. They are remarkable folks. So I'm going to step back a little bit from the services we provide and talk a little bit about the state of the state. Wisconsin is in a little bit of trouble when it comes to childcare. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody. What this slide shows is where children spend their time in care. So for younger children, infants, only a quarter of them are in center-based care. The majority are in family childcare. Once you get to that 3 to 5 year old, that tends to flip. Parents have different reasons for that. Wanting sort of a more school-like experience or more socialization or whatever that might be. But as you can see, group and family childcare make up the majority of that sort of care. There are some additional bundles of folks who are doing group and also then unpaid folks, which might be a neighbor or, you know, a neighborhood kid that comes and maybe watches the kid for a couple hours. And then there's also a combination of care. We did a study, there was a study done out in the Cross area where they were showing that in their community, on average, kids were having potentially up to 7 placements in the course of a week for who was caring for them. So that might mean grandma's house on Monday, neighbor's house on Tuesday, childcare Tuesday, Wednesday, a different neighbor Thursday, dad stayed home maybe on Fridays, mom covered Saturday so dad could go to work. So this whole notion of this piecemeal approach is not good for kids. It's not stable care. It's clearly not good for families trying to manage all of that, excuse me, over the course of a week. So just so you know sort of where the kids are, this is what's happening in the field. And this was prior to COVID. These gray lines are family childcare providers and how many we are losing. The blue is all licensed care. So where we all are would be in those counties that we're losing both. We're losing licensed care, we're losing family childcare. In some places, they've been able to rebuild some capacity with center-based care, but folks are hemorrhaging family childcare. This is important because family childcare is often the easiest to sort of start up. While it has a smaller capacity than childcare group programs might, they can be located wherever the care is needed. And so families don't necessarily have to travel very far if family childcare is happening in their community. Whereas the center might be, you know, the next county over or 30 miles away or opposite of the direction where they're working. So this loss is pretty significant. And then I just want to share a little bit about wages. Someone asked earlier in a question, like, can folks basically run a profitable childcare program without outside support, government or otherwise. So what is true is right now, they are able to on razor thin margins because this part right here, the wages of childcare providers are being squished and compressed in order to make the budgets work. And that's not okay. Folks aren't making enough to be able to actually feed their families. We have over 20% of childcare providers in our state that are food insecure. And that is because the wage structure is so compressed that they can't afford to feed their families. So as you can see, somebody with a high school degree can walk out of high school and make more money than a childcare provider who, in fact, is 80+% likely to have college credit behind their name. That is not cool for all sorts of reasons. This is why the system is broken, right? We have well-educated folks who are basically making less than a high school graduate. And because I'm gonna have a video next that shows sort of how that breaks down and why that happens. Right now, Childcare Counts has been able to infuse some cash into these programs, not so they become like these Cadillac versions of childcare programs. What that money is doing is actually help keeping them stable so they can keep their doors open. We know without Childcare Counts money, about 30% of childcare programs will close based on what survey data we have, and probably 40% will need to raise their rates, anywhere from 20 to 40%. All right, I see something in the chat, so I'm going to pause just for a sec. Family and friends. So, family and friend care, family, friend, and neighbor care. So what is true is that can be an absolutely wonderful, warm place for children to be. What is also true is there is no oversight over what happens in those programs. There is not even a requirement that somebody needs to have CPR in that case. And so making sure that kids are in safe places where we know that certain health and safety foundational rules are being met is a benefit for communities. You can do legal care in the state of Wisconsin, taking care of 3 children, and that is absolutely fine. Once you hit that 4th child, then you need to move into a regulated state, either licensed or certified for family child care. With those levels of licensing and certification, there are some baseline requirements so that there is sort of a peace of mind that if there should be an emergency, the folks who are taking care of those kids have some training to be able to take on that emergency and potentially save a life of a child. So I'm not saying that, you know, your neighbor across the street can't do a fabulous job, but what is true is there isn't necessarily a way to know what's going on in those homes that aren't having any sort of relationship with regulation. And I just want to make sure if I answer that. Averagely hourly rate for childcare in Fond du Lac. Actually, I can get that for you. I don't have that with me, but the Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies post the rates.
Kelly, Fond du Lac County is $9 to $11 an hour. I don't know what Wisconsin is.
For wages. I think they're asking what is the rate that they pay for childcare.
Oh.
In the question.
Okay.
I can get that for you. What we know is that the feds say basically a family should be paying 7%. And I know when I was doing initial research out in Vernon and Monroe County about this, it was closer to 30 to 40% of median average income in their counties. So it is significantly higher than what families, quote unquote, should be paying to make it all work.
In Fond du Lac County, when we surveyed our providers, a center-based care for like that 0 to 2 age was averaging about $205 a week per child. And we have not been able to get any good data from in-home. It's really hard to get them to tell us. They're very proprietary about that.
And partially because it may still feel super competitive for them, right? And some folks will, you know, if you're charging 105, I might just charge 100. Yes, it might cost me, but maybe I'll take kids away from you so that I get them and you don't. What we do when we work with our providers is actually try to help them work in collaboration with each other. There is so much care that is needed right now. It actually makes more sense for programs to work together to help fill all the spots, because there is no way that even if every single slot in your childcare programs were filled, you would still have a wait list in your community. So this video is it's about a few minutes. It's gonna walk you through basically, parents are paying so much, educators are making not even minimum wage for family childcare providers necessarily. What's going on? No, let's go over here. No. Oh, I tested it. Cannot play media. All right, I will have to send this to you as a link after our presentation. But basically, it walks through the model that I was talking about is that labor costs are about 70 to 80% of childcare budgets. They have to be there because we need humans to care for those children, right? Yes, they have to pay for food. They also have to pay for supplies, insurance, all of those other things. But unlike factories, they can't just add more widgets to the line to make the numbers work. There is a reason why we have ratios in our state, and it is because we want to, for health and safety reasons, and because we know quality care depends on quality interactions between children and the adults that care for them. I was in a community meeting not that long ago where someone's like, what's the difference between putting 4 babies in a room with 1 adult and 6 babies? And I just wanted to say, do you really want to be in a room with 6 babies and you are the only person who is responsible for caring for them, for diapering, for feeding, for talking, for playing, for reading stories, for napping? Like, that to me just seems so overwhelming. I actually have been an infant teacher with a 1-to-4 ratio, and I can absolutely tell you that is a lot of work to make sure those little humans get what they need every single day. So we don't want necessarily to change the ratios. What we want to do is figure out, like we said earlier, how to infuse additional funds into that so that the model is more steady. What we need is like a 3-legged stool approach, right? Philanthropic and business, those private funds, parents paying, and government investment. Governments invest in our schooling system, and it is amazing to me that from 0 to 5, where the most brain development is happening, that is where the least money is being put into the system. Wisconsin actually only puts as much money as needed in order to be able to draw down federal funds, and not a penny more. So when you think about that, what that leaves us to work with is not as much as some other states have in order to support their children in childcare. So yeah, if a person earns 20 bucks an hour, paying childcare seems unaffordable if it is left on the backs of parents to pay, right? I did childcare. I have a master's degree. I know what I'm doing. I have many years of experience. If I were to go into a childcare program right now and get a job, I would probably be making about $14 an hour, because that's what they could afford to pay. Not because the pay is commensurate with my experience and my education. So I'm going to transition a little bit into Raising Wisconsin, and this cross-sector organization. Basically, they want health, safety, and optimal development for every single child, regardless of where they live and work in this state. It is bipartisan, like it's people from all walks of life and all political spectrum are part of this organization, because what brings them together is understanding the importance of investing in children and families and the good that that does for the state. So we have a setup that includes a state collaborative team. Employers and economic development leaders are absolutely part of this. We include parents, and we include the providers themselves. Without each of these voices, it doesn't work, right? We know that this is a complex problem and everybody needs to be at the table. What is true is that without this money of childcare counts being continued, we will have a disaster in the state. And I don't say that to be overly dramatic. I don't say it to be like the sky is falling. But what is true is we've been losing childcare providers in this state at a regular clip. COVID made that much more difficult. Directors are retiring earlier. Family childcare providers are retiring early. Several left the field, more than several, many left the field during the pandemic to support and protect their own health. And folks are not coming into this field because it does not pay to stay. So while we may be providing and getting folks degrees through our Teach Scholarship, what we also know is that they have a commitment period that they need to stay in that childcare program. Once that commitment period is over, they can leave for other positions, and typically they move into the public school system or another school system because they get paid better wages, vacations, benefits, all of those sorts of things that childcare can't afford. Only probably 20% of childcare programs can provide insurance for their employees. Many providers don't get paid vacation or sick time. Many childcare providers don't feel like they can take any paid time off because they do feel a deep commitment to their parents. But I can tell you, as somebody who did family childcare, you are in your home with up to 8 children, 10 hours a day, every day. You need to be able to take time away to recharge. You need time away to be able to do your professional development. And so it is not tenable to expect those providers to be there basically every single day, every single week. So without this money, those childcare programs, like I said, are going to close. This is a layout of sort of where we are in that budget process. So these hearings are actually starting. The Joint Finance Committee just laid out the places where they're going to be doing public hearings. Eau Claire, Minocqua, Waukesha, and there's another one in sort of South Central. I can't remember where it is.
Dells.
Wisconsin Dells, thank you. So at this point, this is the community's opportunity to go and say what is important to them, what they think should be included. We have been organizing folks to basically share information about their childcare experiences, whether they're employers who can't keep and retain or recruit folks because of the childcare shortage, parents who are experiencing this, and the providers themselves. We hope to have a very united front to be able to share. Even though all of these folks come from different walks of life and different positions in the community, they are all being affected by this childcare issue. And then just to share a little bit about what is the priorities right here, this childcare stabilization. That is it. Like, that is the big push that Wisconsin, Raising Wisconsin is holding up. It's $300 million for continuation of childcare counts. There are some other additional pieces that are looking at employer support for childcare investment, families, and for the professionals themselves. But our number one push and our number one ask when we are talking to legislators and other folks is around childcare stabilization money. Our Raising Wisconsin website has tools for community leaders and employers and economic development leaders to be able to download, to have talking points, the research that's out there that you might need to be able to talk fully on this topic and to be able to share with others, either in your circles as employers, as community members, or if you are willing and interested in taking your story to the legislators themselves. So this is contact information. I'm going to be sending you the video. I'm sorry that that didn't work, but it's just a few minutes and it will be worth your time to watch as it breaks down sort of the funding model and what parts of it aren't currently functioning. Jackie Anderson is our director of Raising Wisconsin. If you would like her to come, she has done legislative visits in communities with employers and childcare providers to talk about this issue so that the legislative folks representing that area can hear directly from their constituents. So that was a lot. I'm going to pause for a minute, let you all check your notes, catch your breaths, process some of that, and then we can have a conversation.
Anybody
Are there
have
other
questions?
questions?
Questions for Kelly? Maybe a general question. Is this new information to all of you, or is this something you've heard before?
As
Kelly was talking, I text my sister to find out what their rates are at their daycare, and she sent over a picture, but I can't figure out how to attach it in chat.
Oh, no.
But it goes 0 to 2. They just raised their rates at this one this year, and I feel like this daycare center is generally one of the more economically priced places in Fond du Lac. But they just raised their rates for 0 to 2 years old for 2023 to $42 a day for the first child, which is $210 a week. So it's right in that. And then as they get older, the price goes down, and the second child, third child are at a reduced rate as well. So, but I do know that this center struggles to get teachers hired also.
So this is Robin Gruner. I'll be asking this based on kind of my personal feedback, not in any way, shape, or form representing opinions of AT&T, who I work for. But
Sure.
you know, I am no expert whatsoever in this field, and I'm learning a lot as I attend meetings like this. But my question comes back to the in-home daycare centers and family care. You know,
Yes.
you know, we come to be a society where we expect that we have kids and we put them in a daycare center instead of kind of raising our own families and taking care of our own families. And I know that sometimes that's just not a possibility. I get that for some families, but my kids started off in an in-home daycare, and now they're teenagers. So this is several years ago. But two of the in-home daycares that I was utilizing, I thought offered really great care, great people. But they both left the business because of the highly regulatory and rule environment that they had to adhere to. You know, I mean, every year there were some new rules, new regulations. You know, some kid ate a Tide Pod somewhere in, you know, southeastern Wisconsin. So then all of a sudden, you know, they needed to put, you know, these locks and keys on every single one of their cabinets in their entire home. And I mean, I get regulations, I get it, but at some point, from my experience, again, not an expert, the high regulations and rules that are established to these in-home daycare providers have created an environment where people don't want to get into the in-home daycare industry. I don't know if anybody's done any studies on how many in-home daycares we used to have and how many we have now in the state of Wisconsin, if we've seen a decline. You know, it's just, I just don't think the regulations are creating an environment where more people want to get into this industry. So that's, again, just my personal opinion based on experience, by no means any actual data or facts. So just wanted to put that out there and ask that question.
Yeah, thank you, Robin, for that. Absolutely. Families should be able to stay home and take care of their kids if that's what they choose to do. What is also true is Wisconsin has one of the highest percentages of the nation of all parents available in the workforce. So what we know is parents are working, and head of households, especially if they're single parent families, are working and need to have some options. I was a family childcare provider. I deeply believe in that play of service. Children don't necessarily have to go to a big childcare center to get good care. Sometimes I think family childcare is sort of forgotten about as a quality environment for young children to be able to be in. What is true is that there has been a shift over time in Wisconsin about how they're viewing childcare. Childcare started very informally, right? It was neighbors taking care of kids. It was extended families taking care of kids. As we have become a profession, quote unquote, there has been sort of these standards set so that if parents are putting their children in care, they have an understanding of basic foundational health and safety. What is true is, yes, all of your chemicals in your household or your childcare program do have to be locked up. That is absolutely true. And I think we would all agree, we wouldn't want any sort of Tide Pods or Windex or anything available for children to be able to ingest. Like, that would be terrible. What is not true is that every single cabinet in your home has to be locked up. If there are things in there that are not safe for children, absolutely get those locked up, get them out of the children's place to be able to get them. I think we could all agree that's a fairly safe way that we would want things to go. We've also had Youngstar roll out about 13 years ago. That was a major shift in our state. What is true is that some states, as they rolled that out, gave additional resources for programs to be able to be successful within that, right? Because high quality does cost more money. And what Youngstar was looking at was, how do we increase quality? With that, you can't ask more of people without also giving them more to be able to do it, especially if that is the expectation of how care is given. So while they have done some things to be able to get more dollars into childcare programs as they raise their quality through Youngstar, we know it hasn't been enough. We know that programs have struggled with that. And that is something that we take seriously. We've been advocating for. It's part of why our Teach Scholarship program exists, is because educational levels are part of that. And we want programs to be able to meet those requirements at no cost to them. But you are absolutely right. Family childcare has declined immensely. In the last 15 years, we've lost over 75% of regulated family childcare. So some of that is people leaving the field and not replacing, they're getting retired, and young people aren't coming into this work. And some of that is folks deciding that the way that they may have gotten into this business to care for kids and not necessarily run a business. But what is true is if you're taking care of children and being paid for that, the IRS looks at you like a business, right? You can't just walk away and be like, oh, I'm not going to pay my Schedule C taxes because I don't think I'm a business and somebody's just paying me, right? And so we want programs to be successful, to be able to manage their business, manage those regulations, and be successful with quality. And that's part of what my program, WESN, does, is we help folks with licensing compliance. We help remove some of that paperwork burden and administrative burden so they can actually spend more time and money being with the kids, which is the thing that they actually love doing most. But Robin, I totally appreciate your candor, and you are not alone in expressing some of the things that you expressed.
Ellie, 3 years ago, I was with an organization called Prosperity Southwest Wisconsin.
Yes.
And we were working with WICA at that time. And I've got to say that your offerings, your partnerships have expanded a lot and are offering great value. However, the overall situation, as you just described, is not better. You know, again, we're losing daycares, and it doesn't feel that we're coming up with viable solutions to the problem. We're just, Sadie and I were just recently at the WIDA conference, and there were some creative solutions, but it doesn't feel like the government itself is stepping in and accepting their third of the role. But again, I applaud you for what you're doing and keeping pushing forward with this, because we were very engaged with WICA, and then COVID hit and that put an end to that, but you have progressed, which I've got to applaud.
So what is true is that once COVID hit, we actually took on 6 more counties in that southwest region and doubled in size in the number of providers we could care for. And in October of 2020 went statewide. So this is a program that has been continually growing, not just with the number of providers it's been serving, but the services we've been able to offer. Our EAP is the first in the nation to be able to offer that sort of service to an early care workforce across the state. No one else is doing that. We're really excited about that. We've created tax guides to help childcare providers navigate that, especially for family providers, because they have their own set of tax laws, so that they can actually do their taxes correctly, not have to worry about any sort of difficulty with their record keeping or anything like that. We are also doing a new project in the northern and western regions about getting 100 new folks licensed. We've had our first 3 graduates already. We just started working with folks in February. Part of what makes that successful is there is a cash grant that is connected to it, up to $10,000 for family childcare, up to $40,000 for group programs. That has been the missing piece in many of the startup solutions of trying to figure out how to get more people doing care, is that is a barrier when you're trying to start that business. And this grant, we're looking at it sort of as a demo project. Can we prove that if these pieces are in place, with business training and supports and coaching, that businesses are more likely to stay open. Ben, I see your hand is up.
I know we're at 10:01, so I'll try to be quick. I know we're not voting on anything today, at least I don't think we are, but I feel like I need to make a disclosure to the group. My significant other, who just so happens to be a Fond du Lac native, represents WICA and Raising Wisconsin on a state level for lobbying. Kelly, just wanted to ask, you mentioned the three-legged stool funding method as a potential viable solution to this. Currently, as it stands, do you folks have any data around the breakdown of that three-legged stool? Like what percentage falls in both parent pay, government assistance, and then that philanthropic? Or is that something that you folks have a good idea about, both on a statewide level and then maybe in the broken down into the county level?
So I think what is true is we're still trying to figure out what that magic mix is. What we have done when we have surveyed employers is they're like, yes, we need to do something about childcare. Yes, childcare is impacting me. And then when we ask, are you interested in putting money towards that solution? Well, maybe not. You know, we'll see. I don't know. And so we know families shouldn't be paying more than 7%, which leaves a pretty large gap potentially for those other funding sources. I think what is true is we're not going to hit that 7% realistically. It will end up being more for parents. There are some projects happening right now, one called Partner Up, that is sort of modeling an employer and grant function that are paying for childcare programs in specific areas with partners. Parents currently aren't paying in for that model right now. They're really just trying to see if they can work out this employer piece with additional funding. And so I think as we were learning from that model, as we are learning from some of the work that we've been doing, I think we will be able to come up with a formula that says sort of here's each chunk. I will go back and ask our executive director to see if that's something that we've already formulated as part of our work, either with Raising Wisconsin or other employer work that we've done.
And Kelly, just for clarification, that's 7%. Is that 7% of a family's income? Or that's 7% of the overall funding for?
Nope, 7% of their income is what families should be paying, quote unquote, sort of for a workable model for families.
Long way off from that.
We are a long way off, but we have a lot of really brilliant people who are really committed. And I think childcare has been in the spotlight in a way that has never been before. People who I've talked to more economic development folks in the last 3-4 years than I probably have in my entire career. And I've been doing this work since I was like 18. So I think we're at a critical juncture. I think people understand that childcare is actually economic development infrastructure. And it hasn't been talked about that before in that way. So I am heartened and I'm hopeful that having more people at the table who are taking this work on with multiple lenses on community, economic development, employer, philanthropy, all of us starting to push in that same direction, that something needs to change. And I will put my email in the chat. You are welcome to follow up with me if you didn't get a question answered, or if you have another question that pops up. I will be emailing Sadie with the video clip. It's a great summary. I'm sorry it didn't work at the moment. I did test it, darn it. But it was a pleasure to get to speak with you. I hope I do get to continue doing work with you all. I know that childcare is important and you're taking it on, and I want to be with people who are doing the work. So thank you so much.
Jeff, you keep muting and unmuting yourself. Do you have a question?
A very strange parallel, which doesn't offer any solutions, but it's just a very strange parallel. Department of Transportation, right? Every truck that's on the highway. We all know the Schneiders, the Swifts, the big trucking companies of the world. They make up less than 10% of all the trucks on the road. The amount of demand of all trucking occurs from trucking companies that are less than 20 trucks, which are pretty much all the satellite home care providers that are missing. And that's just I think that's the reality. It's an extraordinarily strange parallel, but I personally just am listening. I don't know how the gap gets closed without providing people in home that would rather not be working in an office or in a factory, the ability to take care of their own kids and maybe one or two others. If we could provide more great people like yourself to be able to get them the things that they need without feeling like they have to spend the 8 to 10 hours that you're very familiar with. You know, if they could specialize in taking care of the kids, and then there was a program that just allowed them to just focus on that, right? And
Mhm.
get everything else that they need in their home so they don't have to worry about anything else, you know?
We're working on it.
I mean, if that can happen, it's almost identical to the Department of Transportation. They're very overwhelmed too and understaffed, but it's striking how identical the staffing is.
Nobody had made that parallel yet for me, but that is definitely an interesting one to know that it's sort of happening in other places as well, in other sectors.
To follow up on that note, I was just a part of a training where the new generation that are now having kids, so like the Gen Z, we're
Mhm.
finding a lot of that generation is trying to stay at home because
Yes.
they're money savers and work from home so that they can also raise their own kids. I thought that was very interesting how it's kind of come full circle from the traditionalist and baby boomer generations, and now it's come back that way where parents want to help raise their own kids, and part of that is because of the childcare situation that we have going on right now. And then on a side note, National Farm Medicine Center is working with Ohio State University. They just sent out a survey earlier this week to farmers and ranchers to ask about their childcare needs for ages 0 to 18. So I don't know if you know that was going on, but I thought I'd share since it came across my desk.
Thank you for that.
The
this
technological
is-
generation that would be the one to pick up on all of the information that you're going to share, or somebody other, that's 50, 60 years old that maybe had that grandmother nature, they're going to get swamped. I mean, if there's a generation to capitalize on to help provide that, I would think that if you could provide some marketing tools and some parallels as to the money that they might be able to make in that profession and all the tools that you provide to make affordable and able to do so, nobody's going to pick up on it and run with it any faster than they are.
Well, I will definitely send you all a one-pager sort of with all the stuff that WICA provides and additional information about what WeSend provides directly to childcare providers. Feel free to share that with anybody and everybody you know connected to childcare. And I know that this is just the first of many conversations we will be having.
Appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you for the extra time, and I will talk to y'all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Unless there's anything else, I think that wraps us up, guys. So thank you very much for your attendance, and we'll see you next month.
Don't forget to vote.
That's right.
It's a legislative advocacy group. We got a big election coming up, so.
Indeed.
Yes. And we have our school board candidate forum on the 20th as well that you can watch live, or it gets taped and we'll share the
That's right.
recording.
That's Fond du Lac still, right?
Correct.
High school. Yeah. Yeah. It might be good to watch for me, but I am in the North Fond du Lac School District, so. Very good. Okay. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.